And welcome along to another bonus edition of the Gary Neville podcast. And Gary and I have been at Elland Road today for the second time this week, actually, and we've been royally entertained, haven't we, by what's been on show here?
Yes, we're Leeds' lucky charm, I think.
You want to convince them of that, so you get a good reception here.
Look, I said before on the podcast on Thursday evening that I wasn't really expecting much on Wednesday. I think Leeds have been a little bit sort of like that this season, and I thought they were really good on Wednesday night. Today, they were up against it for large parts of that game, but that'll be a more pleasing point in many ways than the actual 3 points that they got against Chelsea, because they were dead and buried in the second half after those 2 goals that Liverpool scored. And for them to come back again, having Liverpool gone 3-2 up front, it's a remarkable week for them. I had Leeds going down. It's interesting, I think I've said this before, but I watched them on the first Monday Night Football of the season against Everton, and they actually won the game. But I thought they'll struggle. They'll really struggle with it. They're a bit sort of weak, a bit flimsy. I didn't think they had any punch up front. It's a very different front three than we've seen, the 2 or 3 that we've seen in the last few days playing for them. And I think Wednesday night was the first time that I thought they'd been in with a chance. I didn't see the game at City last week, but people say they played well. But on Wednesday night, I thought, that team could do something. What's impressed me most today about Leeds United is that we've seen 2 Leeds Uniteds, actually. We saw the pragmatic 5 at the back, 2 up front, go direct, play for free kicks and long throw-ins Leeds United, which played against Chelsea on Wednesday night and beat Chelsea up. And then we've seen that play against Liverpool today and not quite work out, in the sense that obviously once they give that goal away, you've got to change and you've got to be a bit more progressive in everything that you do. And Daniel Farke, I thought at 2-0 when he made those substitutions, I thought it was a little bit sort of going through the motions, protecting players really for, they played 3 games in a week. Not really expecting much to happen, but just probably rolling a dice a little bit and protecting players. But they then played. And I said, I think after the second goal, they've turned into Real Madrid with those white shirts on, because some of the football between Aronson and Nonto was really good. And then obviously Stack scores that goal off the back of it. So some really good football and taking the ball. So very different, direct one part of a game, and then next minute you're playing passes. So the ability to change. And I know a couple of Leeds United fans, and I said this on the podcast on Thursday, they've been asking for a plan B all season. They've now got 2 plans. They can play in that last bit, which is the way in which I think they want to play more often under Daniel Farke, but they can also play that more physical way where they need to, and they'll need that a lot in this next few months. So this has been an astonishing week. I said at the end of the game, this was the week that I thought would have cemented Leeds' place in the bottom 3, to the point whereby they may have not got out of it again for the rest of the season, because they could have been beaten really heavily this week. And I then said it's been the week of hope. It's been more than the week of hope. It's been a week of utter belief and confidence. If you go into that Leeds United dressing room there now, they must be absolutely buzzing and thinking, hang on a minute, we've just done ourselves proud against Chelsea, Liverpool and Manchester City, 3 of the best teams in the league, and we can handle this. Why are we worried about anything else? So I think it's a massive week. And one more thing to mention on how big it is, I don't know how much we can pay attention to the rumours around the manager and the coach being very, very close to the edge, and that will have pulled him right back. That is I think if you're in the boardroom at Leeds United, you're thinking about what you've seen in this last week. You're thinking, well, okay, let's just hang back a little bit. If you had plans, then you maybe have to cancel them. So that may not have been the case, but there's a lot of rumours, there's a lot of noise, and I think it's been a great week for the coach, and well done to him, because he's played a big part in it.
There's an impressive spirit about them as well, isn't there? Because with the way that Liverpool had let a 2-0 lead slip and then scored again, it kind of had echoes of what had happened at Manchester City, but they didn't give in to that. And similarly, in the game itself, Rodon's head could have dropped after the error for the first goal. And despite the errors that led to goals, they still fought through it.
Yeah, and look, you can, of course, play really good football at Leeds, but there is an identity that runs through the city of Leeds, through the people of Leeds, through the teams of Leeds going back decades. That means that, whilst you might play football like, Harry Kewell and Viduka were wonderful football players, but when you came here, you knew you were in for a real fight, and there was a tenacity to them on and off the pitch, and that has to be at the core of everything that Leeds do. It has to be. And I know that from playing here. If you came here for a nice game of football, you'd absolutely love that. But it shouldn't be nice here. It should be hostile. It should be horrible. It should be intimidating. It should be fast. It should be frantic. It should also have good football, of course, and all those things need to come with it. But this is very much the identity of the club. So what we've seen in this last few days is a balance of good football, physical play, spirit, fight, energy, and they've done really, really well. When I got I think I mentioned this on Thursday as well, when I got my programme a few months ago, I thought, who sent me to Leeds for twice in 4 days? But actually, it's one of the most, I suppose, 2 enjoyable games I've seen, because it's a surprise. We don't often see the big teams get beat by promoted teams. It doesn't happen that often. And we saw Chelsea get beaten on Wednesday night. We've seen Liverpool disrupted today. So, yeah, I think that's always good for the Premier League, irrespective of whether it's good for Leeds. Obviously, it's good for Leeds as well, but it's good for the Premier League. We can never lose that competitiveness from top to bottom, and we've seen it in the last 4 days, really ring true. So, yeah, it's a good day for them, and it puts them in with a real shout of staying in this league. I think it's that bigger moment this week. Long way to go. Can't get carried away. You've not done anything yet. But you have proven that you can live with 3 of the top sides in the division and beat them up and play football with them in the same game like you've done with Liverpool today.
You talked about the manager's position, which always seems to be under scrutiny, and all we have to judge him on in the Premier League is what happened at Norwich. Is that perhaps a bit unfair because it was very different circumstances there? They were taking a lot more of a cautious approach, and this is a very different club to the one he was managing at Carrow Road?
Yeah, I think when Norwich came up, they quite clearly said that they weren't going to sort of bust the club for the Premier League status and go and spend £100 million and end up in trouble with players on massive wages, and that's completely understandable. But Leeds is different than Norwich. As big a club as Norwich are, this is different here. This is a massive expectation club. It's a huge city. It's a club that's got a history of winning trophies. So you've got a different level of expectation, of belief around that what should happen and what should occur out on that pitch and where they should be. I know they haven't been there for a number of years. So when you're trying to build that as an owner of a football club, which Leeds owners are, they won't want to be in a position whereby they just sort of drift back into the Championship. So you can see why this pressure and this noise builds around the coach. But he's reacted, and these players have responded for him. And there's no doubt that those players are with him because they've seen him there at the end going round and celebrating a draw and celebrating the other night and doing a lap of honour with the Leeds fans, going absolutely crazy in the stands. That's important. There's no sort of dressing room being lost here.
The big reaction he did have was in the second half against Manchester City when he switched to this back 3 system. Do you think that's form and fitness permitting what he has to stick with now?
I would stick with it if I was him, knowing you can change to the sort of... How many teams are Leeds going to out-football in this division? Let's be clear. The amount of football teams we've got in here that have got better players. So what they can do is stay in the game. What they've got to be here at Elland Road is in the game with 15, 20 minutes to go. And then start to get that crowd up. Crosses, tackles, shots on goal, corners. And then you might start to play some of your football, which we've seen today. But being solid, making sure that you're difficult to beat, staying in games, I think has to be a principle that teams that come up from the Championship have to get into them. And I think we've seen that a little bit more this season. They've been a bit more physical, likes of Sunderland and Burnley and Leeds. So we've seen so many teams over the last few years come up and try and take on Manchester City at Manchester City's game. And it's embarrassing to watch. So let's forget that. Let's have 2 styles of play. And Daniel Farke's doing his interview here now. He's smiling. You can see it beaming all across his face. It's amazing. You don't even need to hear the words, do you, to know whether a manager's had a good game or a bad game. You can tell. And he should be really proud. His players will deserve 1 or 2 days off to recover from what they've done this week. But I think in terms of what he's got now, he's stumbled across a system, but it suits them. With the 2 strikers, the wing-backs, the 3 centre-halves and the 3 in midfield. But he's also shown that they can play really well in that system that they've got and play some decent football. And Liverpool had switched. To a glass half-empty mentality of seeing the game out by his substitutions he's made. So his momentum's gone, but he's trying to manage the game. And then as soon as you score a goal and you've got players on the pitch that Leeds had to play, you're in real business.
So what do we make of Liverpool then? Because this is the 3rd promoted club they've faced. They beat Burnley only with an injury time penalty. They only got a draw against Sunderland and perhaps were lucky not to lose it at the end. And they've only got a draw here, having at one stage been 2-0 ahead. Where are they at now?
a confused team. Confused by the fact there's still a lot of very good things that you see. Shape, sustaining attacks, certain individual performances. And then I think they've lost their way up front in the sense of what does a Liverpool goal look like? What are the patterns that you see? So I'm not quite seeing the repeated patterns, and maybe I've just become used to seeing Salah on that right wing for so many years, and obviously going back it's Firmino and Mane, and then since then it's been different. But maybe I've just got used to that sort of type of player that plays on the profile. And I asked actually a few weeks ago that Liverpool do change and Szoboszlai sort of goes to one side and they play a bit more narrow and they become a bit more difficult to beat. So I think that's the right thing to do. But the mistakes that they make and the opportunities and encouragement that they give to teams when so much experience out there. I mean, Konate's challenge for that first one. So when he slides in and he sort of like goes towards onto, I go, oh, because I just thought it was one of those where the centre half slides, the player runs it too far, and it goes out for a sort of a goal kick. But he slid towards the legs rather than slide that way and try and block. So Nonto's here. He's basically slid towards him. And I thought the ball had gone out initially, but it hadn't done. And then he sort of like hooks his leg a little bit, and it's so clumsy. It's so clumsy. And all of a sudden, the roof caves in on you at grounds like this. Anfield's the same. You can be 2-0 up at Anfield, you can see the goal, and all of a sudden you've got madness. And that's Elland Road as well. And it comes from individual errors. They were absolutely cruising in this game at 2-0. I thought they played a good first half defensively. I thought the front three weren't good enough in the sense of Wirtz, Gakpo and Ekitike. They didn't get involved enough, and the quality wasn't good enough. So that was something to pick up on. But if you said to me today about Liverpool, what was the thing they had to do was compete with Leeds in that first half and nullify them and shut them up and keep the crowd quiet and get your game going. And they did that. So I thought it was a professional first half from Liverpool without anything happening spectacular up front. And then all of a sudden you get the goal. Leeds make a mistake. Ekitike's blistering pace gets onto it, finishes, boom. Then I was asking them a lot in the first half to play balls earlier into the box, and I think Bradley did that. He played a great ball into the box. Again, Ekitike, brave, gets in there, 2-0, game over. You've won the game. You don't need to win it again. And Arne Slot makes substitutions, telling his team, we've won this game. This is now about shape. It's now concentration. It's focus, game management. And they've not been capable of it again. And they've created their own problems. And even at 3-2, you were almost like, something could happen. You don't trust them. You can't trust them. They've lost trust. Now, they've got a lot of credit in the bank, these players and this manager, over what's happened in the last 18 months with them winning the league. But they're losing it rapidly. And it's getting to the point where they're making mistake after mistake after mistake. I thought Konate and Van Dijk had handled the two threats up front aerially really well in the first half. The minute that Leeds started to bring on the little players, the sort of players that were a little bit more tricky and a little bit more, Konate started to look a little bit all over the place. So it's a really bad day for them, really bad day. And they got a lifeline by going in 3-2. I thought that Gravenberch and Szoboszlai were the two best players. And Szoboszlai gets the goal and you think, right, that's it. But the 9 minutes impacted them, didn't it? I don't think they were happy with the 9 minutes. I don't know where 9 minutes came from, but you could see that, they weren't confident in the 9 minutes. And just before the corner, and maybe it's something Cara can look at on Monday Night Football, there was screaming. I don't know whether it was the goalkeeping coach or the set-piece coach.
Yeah.
They were screaming him and Arne Slot down here at people before that goal goes in. I don't know what it was at, but something had unnerved them, and they find themselves on a bad one. It's a bad one again. And they'll be dejected going back to Liverpool tonight on that coach. It's only obviously an hour away, and I think they'll be in a very dark place. I don't think they'll be in a good place at all.
You know what football's like. You can get overreactions, and undoubtedly the questions about Arne Slot are going to resurface again. Do you think that is an overreaction?
Well, if you want overreactions, come and listen to the Gary Neville podcast. No, I'm not. I can't entertain the idea of Arne Slot and talking about his job. That's just not for me. He's won a title 4 months ago. There's definitely a problem. There's definitely, I think, an issue of settling this new team, this group of players who've come together into the squad, and what's happening with Salah, what's happening with Isak, what's happening with the defenders, what's happening with the fullbacks. There's lots of questions, and you can tell he's still trying to answer them. And he's probably not going to answer them for a while yet. It may even need that something, may need a transfer window just to sort of refine things again. It might just need that big transfer window they've had. It might just need a couple to leave and a couple to come in just to sort of get to where he wants to, because he's had a very, very steady ship, hasn't he, when he's first come in. He's not had the confusion of loads of players coming in, so he's got a stable group of players who know each other. He's then got this introduction into the dressing room of 5 or 6 players and trying to integrate them into a team with real excitement and massive transfer fees. Verts, £100 million, Isak, £100 million, Ekitike, £80 million. You spent what, 300 million, over 300 million on 3 players with real excitement. We were all saying Liverpool are unbelievable favourites for the league. I wasn't. I said Arsenal, but everyone, and I could see why everyone was. I'm not disagreeing with them. I'm not rewriting history. I think Liverpool, to be fair, were right up there with Arsenal to be title favourites. And yeah, it's gone wrong. It's gone badly wrong. But it isn't a time to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is a time for them just to sort of what will be knuckle down, work hard, think about what they need to do, refine that squad a little bit more, think about what they're doing in January, start to plan for next season with Arne Slot and what that looks like, because they've got a fantastic manager, in my opinion, and think about now how they rebuild that Liverpool defence, how they get that Liverpool midfield right, and most importantly, how is he going to get the best out of Verts and Isak? Verts, I said he was very young. Lots of potential, but it looks to me like, one, the settling in of the Premier League and what it is and the physicality of it and different things, but the coaching of less is more. Don't try and get on the ball as much, don't try and run as much. Every time I watch him, I think the same thing. You run too much and you try and get on the ball too much. Now that seems the antithesis of what a football player in number 10, you should say, get on the ball, go and run, mate. No, I want my number 10 close to my centre forward, within 12 to 18 yards from goal, and if possible, when the ball goes wide, I want him making runs in there with 6 yards. I don't see him make one run within 6 yards of the goal where the goals get scored. So there are a number of little things for me with Verts that I just look at and think, the smart people in that Liverpool backroom staff, they must be saying these things to him, but I'm still not seeing it sort of what would be emerge on the pitch. I'm still seeing the same sort of things happen with him, where he's drifting back the way or he's running wide and he's always on the move. And I think when players are always on the move, they're easy to pick up. It's when players are just sort of walking and sort of, and then they move late and fast. And also, when he goes too deep, he's in an area where most opposition teams will not care about him being there, because he's not De Bruyne, who goes deep and then gets into this right channel and starts whipping crosses in from 40 yards away, and you think you better get close to him. He's not that player. So he has to be, for me, in tight areas, in and around Ekitike and Isak, 5, 6, 7, 8 yards away from them, 10 yards max, in and around the edge of the box, so that there's popping into each other, pop, 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 boom. I can see that. I don't know what that is, what I've just done. But there's like a little bit, I can see him being there with like a clever move, a little over, back to him, feed back to him, wall pass, shoot. I can see, but if he's not anywhere near his striker and he's not building a relationship with his striker, it's not going to happen. He's got to get himself in the right areas. I'm absolutely adamant and sure that this is his problem currently. Yes, settling in, but do yourself a favour. You need goals. The thing that will bring him out of, there's 2 things that will bring him out of his slump. The team winning and him winning. And him winning looks like scoring goals at £100 million. It's scoring goals and setting up goals. The only way he's going to do that is play within the 18-yard box and closer to goal and closer to his strike partner. That's it. End of. He's not going to do it by basically playing out on the left wing, right wing, or playing in central midfield alongside McAllister or Gravenberch or wherever he is. So for me, really emphatic. I think that knowing that position from a point of view, if we played 2 up at United with 1 off, that Sir Alex Ferguson was a striker. As people probably know that, but if they didn't, he was a striker, and he was obsessed with the 2 players up front always being close to each other, to be able to just pivot off each other. So the one could run through, one could sort of be higher, then one could go through, and opposite. You'd always combine. So yeah, that needs dealing with.
With that in mind, could Salah and Ekitike play together, do you think?
Salah and Ekitike.
Isak and Ekitike.
It doesn't look like it could happen on paper. When you look at it, you think of them as being too similar. But I don't rule out the fact that if I wouldn't like to play against the pair of them, but they would need to work really hard at it and find some common ground between them about who's going to compromise at times and who's going to be the one that drops in, maybe who's going to be the one that sort of maybe presses or whatever. They just people didn't think York and Cole could play together, but there was a common ground between them that they found very early, a relationship that they built. So if there's a relationship there that's building off the pitch and they're supporting each other and they feel like that we can really make this work because they're both talented, how can I sit here and say that two players shouldn't play with each other when they're both worth £220 million between them? They should be able to combine and cause nightmares for defenders. I just don't think Arne Slot sees that, to be fair. I think he sees Wirtz and Isak or Wirtz and Ekitike. I think that's how he sees it. But yeah, I don't rule it out. And at this moment, if you're going to play a more tight midfield four and you want two up front, a bit like Leeds have done, but obviously Leeds have gone to a five, then yeah, why not? Just get them up there and get them running in the channels, get them running in behind, let them be a nightmare. They're quick, lightning quick. But I don't think that's the priority. I think that would then mean that Wirtz has got to go somewhere else. And yeah, I'm not sure that's what's on the cards.
Quick word about elsewhere. Rare stumble today for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Unai Emery says, talking about the title race, are empty words until April, so he's not countenancing any speculation that they might be in the race. What do you think about Aston Villa's prospects?
Well, I think that you know more than me about what's Arsenal's record like at Aston Villa. I mean, I think they've lost there a couple of times, haven't they, in the last few years?
Yeah, they lost at home to them. In fact, I think Villa completed the double over them that season when they were really close.
Of course they did.
And if I remember rightly, last season they were 2-0 up Arsenal and dropped points again at home.
Yeah, so look, I didn't do the game today, and I didn't do that game away at that you're talking about that Villa won at Villa Park in that season, but I did do the game later on in the season where obviously Ollie Watkins scored. Yeah. So I did that game. It always strikes me as a team, Villa, that can beat Arsenal. That's what I was thinking today before the game. And Villa Park, I think, is just obviously the form that they're in as well. Unai Emery, the coach. So that's a game you can lose. I think they did okay in the game, but Villa played really well. I wouldn't be panicking at all if I was Arsenal off the back of that. You're going to lose a game or two. You just are. You're going to lose a game or two. And you're going to win a lot of games. They could sit there tonight and think that Manchester City are a couple of points off them, but they've had a tough week, Arsenal, haven't they? They've had a tough week. Chelsea away, Villa away. You could argue it's been Arsenal's toughest week of the season. Obviously, the game in between that at home. So no, I think that they'll realise that Manchester City have got those types of weeks coming at points in the season as well. I don't think it's a time to panic, but they're certainly going to feel that breath on the neck of Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. And I think City will be going to bed tonight thinking, ooh, if we can stay this close until April, May, and Unai Emery mentions April, May, let's see what they're made of. And that's what Manchester City have to do. They have to hang in there and sit on their shoulder and see what they're about and see what they're made of and see what they're like in a real title race again, because they've seen them before. But for Arsenal, no panic. It's a game you can lose. Don't dismiss it and don't think everything's okay. But on the other hand, don't think about it too much as being some sort of what would be bigger thing than it is, because sometimes you just lose football matches that are competitive against good teams, and Villa are a good team.
Do you still have your doubts about Manchester City defensively, bearing in mind that, even though they've come through this week, they were lucky to do so against Fulham, having let them back into the match. They conceded a couple against Leeds and saw them come back into it, even though City ultimately won. Yeah,
because they give you a chance. The teams of Manchester City that won the league all those years on the run didn't give you much of a chance at all. They were, you couldn't penetrate them at all. You couldn't get the ball off them. So every time I watch them, I think, yeah, you've got a chance of scoring goals. So I think they'll get a bloody nose from a time or two. But Arsenal are going to have to be reliable and consistent as they have been in the first part of the season still to win the league. I mean, this is the season of inconsistency. I mean, everybody's all over the place. You've just seen it here with Liverpool again today, Chelsea the other night, Manchester United on Thursday night. The teams that you would have expected to be in and around the top six, Tottenham, they're all over the place. Villa were down at the bottom a couple of months ago. Now they've sort of risen, and so everything's really strange. Arsenal have been the only thing that have been reliable. They started in a week that was tough. They found it tough. So we just need to make sure now, from an Arsenal perspective, are they going to be consistent? Are they going to be consistent and get back on the horse and sort of canter forwards again, or are they going to start sort of, falling off and being a little bit sort of all over the place? And this is going to impact them. So Christmas is an important period. There's loads of points to play for. Massive month. December, I always think, with 4 or 5 games, 6 games, more Premier League games than ordinarily there would be in any other month. So, yeah, let's have a look at it. But City should be encouraged. But I still think that Arsenal's, are favourites, but not as much as I did maybe a week or so ago.
Well, many more twists and turns to come. Thanks for joining us on the Gary Neville podcast. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. You gave us a stack of sources detailing what has been, well, arguably the most chaotic week in the Premier League this season.
Oh, absolutely. The results were just all over the place.
Baffling performances, wild scorelines, and we're going to get right into that volatility today.
That's the plan. I mean, our mission here is to go a bit deeper than the headlines, right? We need to pull out the tactical, the structural, and the psychological lessons from all this upheaval.
And we're focusing on 2 clubs in particular.
Yeah, Leeds United and Liverpool, because I think their contrasting fortunes, they tell you everything you need to know about the fragility in the league right now.
Okay, let's start with Leeds then.
Yeah.
Because that was an unbelievable turnaround. I mean, you look at that fixture list. Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, and the consensus was they were done for.
Dead and buried.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cemented in the bottom 3.
And instead, what we saw was this complete psychological shift. It was a week of utter belief and confidence. It's pulled the manager, Daniel Farke, right back from the edge.
But the big takeaway for me was the tactical discovery they made.
The plan B.
Yes. For months, fans have been crying out for a plan B, and in 1 week, they got 2.
It's incredible, isn't it? Against Chelsea, you saw that really pragmatic, physical, 5-at-the-back system.
Just a shield, basically.
A deep shield designed to soak up pressure and hit on the break. But then against Liverpool, when they were chasing the game,
Totally different approach.
a much more progressive, high-tempo passing game. We saw those little link-ups like Aronson and Nanto.
So at the core of this new Leeds identity, what's the one thing that has to be there?
It's the balance. It has to be. You can have the nice football, but it's got to be built on what the sources are calling essential hostility.
Hostility. So not just hard tackles?
No, it's tactical aggression. It's that spirit, the fight, the energy that defines Elland Road. It's the high press that stops a team like Liverpool having any time on the ball. That combination, it's non-negotiable for their survival.
Okay, so if Leeds found their identity, the sources paint Liverpool as a club that's, well, completely lost its own.
Utterly lost. They're a confused team.
Failing to win games they should be cruising in. Draws against Sunderland, Leeds.
After being 2-0 up against Leeds, it's because the problems are structural. You watch them. What does a Liverpool goal even look like anymore?
There's no repeated pattern.
None. And then you get these clumsy individual errors like Konate's slip for that first Leeds goal.
And the whole thing just collapses.
Instantly. A total loss of trust in how to manage a game.
And a lot of the criticism seems to be landing on their £100 million player, Wirtz. He's running too much, drifting too deep.
Well, that's a critical point. His job is to score and create goals, full stop. But by drifting wide or dropping deep into midfield, he just isolates his striker Eket or Isak. He makes himself so easy to mark.
So what's the fix? What's the concrete tactical solution?
He has to stop playing like a winger. He needs to stay central, close to his strike partner. We're talking 5 to 10 yards away, max.
In and around the box.
In and around the edge of the 18-yard box. That's his office. That's where he does his damage. If he's not there, the whole structure just doesn't work.
Let's zoom out to the title race. Arsenal had a rare stumble against Villa, and Unai Emery said title talk is just empty words until April.
Which is smart. And for Manchester City, this is exactly what they want. Their strategy is purely psychological now.
Just hang in there.
Just hang in there, sit on their shoulder, and apply pressure. The sources are clear. Arsenal, for all their brilliance, will still give you a chance defensively.
And City are just waiting for that chance.
They're waiting for that consistency to crack when the real pressure hits in April and May.
So the central theme, from top to bottom, seems pretty clear then.
It's inconsistency. A deep psychological inconsistency across the entire league. Everyone looks vulnerable right now.
Which brings us to a final thought. If a club like Leeds can completely reinvent its identity and find a plan B in just 1 week to pull themselves out of danger, what does that say about the so-called big teams that are failing to manage games they should be winning? Are they maybe less equipped psychologically to handle this kind of chaos? And who's the next struggling team that's going to find their plan B? We'll see you for the next deep dive.